Um, One of the things I was trying to think of what I'd like to share, because during exploring monastic life, Venerable has encouraged us to share some things about living in community and being ordained, things that really have helped us to grow and helped us to meet the challenges of life here at the Abbey. And one of the things that has been one of the greatest treasures, I think, of living here is that Venerable's long-term relationships with a lot of the ordained monastics in other parts of the world. She's really encouraged them to come and spend time with us and to share their knowledge and their wisdom. And in particular, the Chinese bhikshunis who have come here to help for our ordination rites because we need their seniority, we need their years of practicing the Vinaya to be able to do our ordinations. And there are a few that we have quite a very, very close long-term relationship with. And because of their long-term relationship with Venerable, they've come here, and I have found them to be real treasures and also guiding forces in my practice. So one of them, and I found also what Venerable has said numerous times, is that what we do is we receive teachings and all these words of wisdom, we put them into our computers and notebooks, and then we close the computer and we forget about it. So in wanting to share today, I found an audio recording of a sharing that one of the Chinese bhikshunis gave to the community about 5 years ago that I wanted. There were a number of beautiful, precious gems in this sharing, and I wanted to, they just, I got caught aback on how deeply they went in when I listened to them. And so I broke it down into 2 or 3 little sharings that this one particular Chinese bhikshuni has shared about her life. So one of the things that she had talked about is that she said, I also wanted to say something about your logo. We have a sort of a mission statement that's on all of our pamphlets, our websites, and it is creating peace in a chaotic world. That's sort of our brand. She said, look, yeah, our brand is, this is what we're really aspiring to be able to do, is to create peace in a chaotic world. She said, it's a very beautiful statement. But she said, to live that statement, you have to learn how to practice in chaos. If you resent chaos, if you're one of these people like me, who likes everything orderly and in a structured way, you're going to be contradicting the state of the world, because she says the world in general and human beings in general, by their very nature, are chaotic beings. She said we can try our best to organize our lives as best as we can, but life doesn't run according to our plans. It's not organized the way that we would like it to. She says to live out this statement, we have to learn to be masters of our own minds in this chaotic world. She says we have to really deeply understand that I am a practitioner, and practicing the path is practicing the path of truth. In a way, when you have difficulties, you have to go inside and be willing to have a dialogue with yourself to find out what it is you're complaining about, what the problem is, what the challenge is, and why you're struggling and suffering so much. She said in the past, and she said maybe in the beginning, but she said in the past, she says we usually expect our teachers to have this very far-sightedness, this wisdom about our practice, and supply the problems to solve our problems. And she says later she realized in her practice as a monastic with her teacher, she said that was an extremely unrealistic expectation that she had on her teacher. She said her teacher can guide her, she said, but my teacher is not responsible for my practice. She made an analogy. She had gone to graduate school at the University of Washington. She said, when I was in graduate school, she said the school had a lot of rules. And it said, and one of them was that students had the responsibility to, whatever it was about their papers or the curriculum or where they lived or what they did. She said it wasn't the faculty's responsibility, it was the student's responsibility. And she said, in a way, as practitioners, we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves physically and mentally and try to live in a community setting using that kind of paradigm, that we are responsible for our own internal, external life, our own physical and mental well-being, that we're not going to hand it over to our teachers or whoever we think is in charge. And at the time, this was 5 years ago, we were 5, so we were 8 years old as a community here. And here's what she had, some observations and some suggestions for us. And I still think this is true, even though we've gotten a lot mature as a community. We've practiced together, we've grown. She says you are still a very young community and endure a lot of hard work, construction work, learning the teachings. Um, so you'll always have these situations. But she said, if you change the angle and say, I am monastic, I am not someone who lives as a lay practitioner where I'm living in my own home, practicing alone, with sometimes not having personal contact with my teachers. She says we really have to understand to change the perspective when we're having difficulties and see what do we have going for us. We have this extraordinary environment, we have this wonderful community, we have access to wonderful teachers and the Dharma. Your hard working brings a lot of benefit to your own practice and brings a lot of benefit to people. So she's kind of encouraging us, because when you're forming a community, even though we're 13 years old, we're still young in the course of Abbey history. And that she said, if you've got to sort of change your perspective on the difficulties and see it as all benefiting your practice and benefiting all living beings as well. And she said, in a way, you are pioneers, and that it's always hard, but we help to create a good environment which is beneficial to our own practice. And these were very, very important for me to understand. She said, by what you're doing for whatever hardship we have, we're the offering service, trying to grow the community, the construction, learning the Dharma, whatever. She said, we are purifying a whole lot of negative karma, and we're generating a lot of merit. So everything that we do here, taking care of those two fundamental things that we aspire to, is to know what to abandon and what to cultivate. And she says, as a result, when it's time to listen to the teachings, if you can keep this joyous attitude, this ability to endure hardship with some joy in the sense that it's enriching your practice, she says, when it's time to listen to the teachings, you will receive them, because you're going to have a whole lot less obstacles in your mind when you hear them. If you're trying to practice, for example, even if you have to work or what we call offer service, this is an observation that she made. She said it's very ironic that for new practitioners or young practitioners in the Dharma, offering service is not equal to practice. They are separate. Practice means no work, no difficulties, no challenge. And then there's work. She says, this has to change. Because she says there's an awkwardness of young practitioners who are often feel defeated by difficulties. But something that helps us is that we can reflect on what went wrong. And so she says, what you do is when these difficulties arrive in community here at the Abbey, you analyze the situation. You go internally, you look and say, well, what's going on? What's the problem? Or you look outside, what are the circumstances that are bringing this difficulty? And that you recognize that most of the time the external circumstances are totally out of your control. All right, so we've got to let that's a self-acceptance thing. Understand that deeply. But a lot of that's going on the internal part of us, we have some control over. If we can identify what we can take care of, what we can change, what we can work with, great, and the things that we can't, to let go of. She says, when you look back, she says, you will notice your own progress. Being ordained can be difficult, she said, but the joy can be extraordinary. And that this whole idea about, using the offering service, whatever the structure is at the community, to see it as part of our practice, that it's not some romantic notion that we do all of this work and then we get time to practice. She says we really need to integrate those. And I remember we had the former abbot of Shasta Abbey come here maybe about 10 years ago at this point. And he sat with the community at the time, and him and Venerable talked a little bit about their lives as ordained monastics. At that time, they'd both been ordained about 35 years. And so we all sat around. He has some wonderful stories about his relationship to his teacher and working on his mind. And we asked both him and Venerable, we said, does it get any easier? You know, there were a few of us that had been ordained maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years. And, and Venerable and Reverend Master Echo looked at each other and went, nah. But what they did say is that they said you have a lot more tools to work with the challenges. Your minds get a lot stronger and happier, and you get a much larger perspective on what actually is happening in your life, and you garner quite a bit more wisdom. So things don't get easier, but what you have to bring to that challenge or to bring to your life is a whole lot greater. So they said this with this extraordinary, this is the reality, and it's not a problem. That this is all part of taking it onto the path, transforming our minds for the benefit of all beings. And that was great to have together. They had about 60, 70 years of ordained life between the two of them. They both understood it wasn't getting easier, but boy, they had a whole lot more tools to work with what was coming, in their life and transforming it all into the path. So this is one of the things that was in this little audio sharing, and I just took it really to heart, is that to sort of check in and challenge my romantic notions about what I think ordained life is. I'm coming on my 10th year, and believe it or not, I still have some romantic notions about what ordained life hopefully will be one day. And for the elders and for the sages of the Vinaya, they're saying, honey, get off, wake up. Wake up. There are no magical notions. There's no romantic waving of wands. It all is from in here outward. And you are totally responsible for how your life unfolds. And the Dharma gives you the most beautiful tools to make it the richest, most extraordinary life, not only for yourself, but by extent for every living being that you come in contact with and beyond. So anyway, it's one of the things I got from this teaching.